Hi, welcome to another Tree Talk, and I'm here with Rachel Neuenfeldt. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh yeah, we're very excited to hear a little bit about what you're doing for the Wayne National Forest. Can you tell us a little bit about your position?
Sure, yeah. So I am the collaboration specialist on the Wayne National Forest. I work a lot with the Forest Plan Revision team, and we'll talk about that today. I came here from state and private forestry, so the National Forest Service has a whole bunch of different branches. We work with state and private landowners. We work on the national forest lands. So came to Ohio from there, and I love working with partners and working with the public. So I get to do a lot of that in my role now.
Oh wow, very cool. So yeah, lots of collaboration and working with
Absolutely.
different entities. Can you tell folks just a little bit more about the Wayne National Forest?
Sure, yeah. So the Wayne National Forest, I'm actually going to pull up a slide here, is Ohio's only national forest. So, there's a lot of confusion, I think. Sometimes people confuse the national parks and the national forest, or state parks with our state forests and our national forests. But the Wayne National Forest is 244,000 acres in southeast Ohio. We're broken up into a couple of different districts. So we have an Athens Ranger District, we have a Marietta Unit, and an Ironton Ranger District. But I think one of the important things about the Wayne National Forest is that, if you can see on the slide there's those dark lines that surround those units are our proclamation boundary. But we don't really own all of the land within that proclamation boundary. It's really broken up forest land. So you can see those dark patches kind of within those lines there, and that's the land that we actually own. So it makes it really hard for us to manage sometimes, and it's why our partnerships and collaboration is so important for the work we do.
Right, yeah, so yeah, probably, I don't know if there's some of you out there that haven't got to visit this beautiful chunk of public land in southeast Ohio, but it is our only national forest in Ohio, right, Rachel?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually, another thing people don't often know is that we're managed by the Department of Agriculture. So it's different, again, from the Park Service and from other land management agencies. We're not in the Department of Interior like those agencies are. We're in the Department of Agriculture. So we have a whole different set of rules and regulations that we have to follow.
Very cool. So, Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about some of the land use history that is the Wayne National Forest?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something that's really fascinating about living in this state and living in this part of the country, is that we have over 10,000 years of land use history, of people living on the lands, of climate changes, of ecological changes, of shifts. And, that's really had an impact on the land. So you go out and you see these forests and you see these big trees and you think, they must be so old and so majestic. But really, there's been so many changes that a lot of that history is really recent and has had a big impact. So you can see on the slide here, this photo of some of the more recent land use history. So I mentioned that 10,000 years of those ecological changes, but in recent history, especially coming into like industrial era with mining and things like that, a lot of the land and a lot of the trees were just completely barren and taken away and taken off of this land.
Right, so a lot of disturbance really that has happened and shaped the forest that we have today in southeast Ohio.
Absolutely, yeah. So, in the past 200 years or so, we've had the trees cut down, you've had mining over a lot of the landscape, you had the iron industries here, and they were cutting timber for that as well. So you can see the just barren, scarred land that was here, only a couple of centuries ago.
Yeah, wow. So kind of boiling down quick, some rich land use history. And Rachel, can you tell us a little bit about some of the important moments in history that shaped the Forest Service and the Wayne?
Yeah. So, if you can see, there's another slide here, a picture of once the Forest Service started to acquire the land. So the Forest Service was established in 1905, not all that long ago. And we are tasked with managing the forests. But at first there was no real way to acquire land in the east. So a lot of these main forests came at first in the west. You hear about these huge forests out west, but in 1911 there was actually an act passed called the Weeks Act that allowed the federal government to acquire land here in the east. And so in Southeast Ohio, that meant that the Wayne National Forest could be created. So you started to see the federal government acquiring land within those proclamation boundaries that we showed earlier, and starting to plant trees, kind of starting to reforest this land and get it back to a more natural state. But unfortunately, you're looking at the kinds of lands that they were buying, and you saw before how barren everything was. You're really, the land that was being purchased was really old farmland. It was strip mines. It really was not land that was highly valuable.
Yeah, wow. So, and that's the history of a lot of our public lands across the country. Different,
Exactly.
Sometimes some different impacts. But, and so, so I'd imagine though, the Wayne has a pretty different look and feel today. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we'd like to hope so. We're definitely, moving towards that. I think a lot of what we talk about today is this landscape and healing. So there's one more photo here of one of a current view of the Wayne National Forest. So if you go out today, you're not going to see these big 300-year-old trees and things like that, but what you will see are these kind of middle-aged trees, 40 to 90 years old, and a lot of different ecosystem types. And we've got this landscape that, we've got a lot of these hills and things that make for a lot of different habitats, a lot of different ecosystems out on the land. We still have that highly fragmented nature, which means that we're not able to manage the land as a big contiguous unit anymore, or at all, but we are really able to see some progress. I mean, you can see just the difference from that early picture to this one and how much that landscape has changed. And now with the Wayne National Forest, we have recreational trails, we have swimming areas, we have lakes, we have all sorts of things that people can actually do and use the forest for, as well as things like our forest products. So it's really a changed landscape, but I would still say a landscape that's healing and that's not fully at its true potential. There's still things like acid mine drainage and other effects that linger from that old use of the land.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, I agree. As someone who lives in the area, just a very rich diversity of species and kind of a biodiverse area in Ohio, but definitely still some management challenges and that fragmentation and kind of lots of different stakeholders adding to the complexity. Because your mission is definitely this multiple use concept, right?
Exactly. And that's a hard concept when you've got so many different people around who want to see different things from the landscape.
Right. Well, so one of the things that we're going to be talking more with you about is how you can manage that and kind of planning for the future. And so you'll be telling us a little bit more about that process soon, Rachel, is that right?
Yeah. So, a lot of the ways that we plan and we manage and we implement the work that we do is through our forest plan, which is this big wide plan that we'll talk about a little bit more. But that really is a big process on the forest, and it really determines some of the outcomes and how we move forward.
All right, great. So stay tuned to hear more about this planning and how you can get involved.